Now that you've had your 3 talk abroad conversations and you've learned about how your topic and cultural products, practices, and perspectives exist in 3 different French-speaking countries, it's just about time to start putting that all together in your video project. And in this short video, I'd like to hit some key points about, first of all, what that video will look like, some of the main requirements, and also the next step, which is drafting your script. Let's start with the final product, the video that you'll be creating and what you're going to be doing with it. I should note that these are really kind of the broad strokes about your video and about the draft script that is the first step in putting that video together. You'll find very detailed instructions in the document and the Canvas assignment where you found this video. But what you'll end up producing is a 10 to 20 minute video, so minimum 10 minutes, maximum 20 minutes, narrated by you. And that video can take many forms. Most students, because they're familiar with slides, have chosen to do some sort of narrated slideshow in the past. You could certainly talk directly to the camera as long as your video is more than that. We're going to talk about using images and various strategies to engage your audience in a minute. So it could just be you speaking, but that would need to be supported with images or other media. This is really, in the video, this is really where you're going to synthesize what you learned from your talk abroad conversations about the products, practices, and perspectives related to your topic in your partner's countries. Then once you create your video, you're going to post it to YouTube and share a link on a tool that's called Padlet. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. And the reason I'm having you do that as a two-step process, posting it to YouTube and just sharing the link, is because a 10 to 20 minute video is going to be too large for you to share directly on Padlet. And then finally, you're going to react to your colleagues' videos on Padlet. Here's what Padlet looks like. You'll see it's sort of like a central bulletin board where all of your peers will post their videos. And then you'll be tasked with watching a sample of those videos and reacting on them. So you'll see something like this that's got all of the videos together, links to the videos together, and then I'm going to be asking you to comment on them, as you'll see here. One of the reasons that I think it's important to give you some experience in creating this kind of video is because presenting information, especially using multimedia, is a skill that I expect you're going to have to use in work and in life. But you may have seen some pretty poor examples of using slides and multimedia in the classroom or elsewhere. So that's why I've linked to this document in the assignment instructions. If you're planning to use slides, really focus on the visual and not so much on text. So you'll see this 5x5 rule is that each slide should have no more than 5 lines of text, because it's really hard for people to read and to listen at the same time. Also avoid putting entire sentences, huge blocks of text on your slides. That's not particularly engaging, and it's kind of impossible for your audience to process. Make your fonts big enough so that they're easily readable, and a picture is worth 1,000 words, as this says. My recommendation for this and for most other presentations is that they be primarily image-based and much less text-based. Only use text when absolutely necessary as a title, and certainly not, please don't use text to write out a script on the slide and then read it directly. That's not really engaging, and it's not effective presentation. And you'll see when you look at the rubric that's in the assignment document, the video presentation assignment document, this is one of the evaluation criteria, how you engage your audience, and that's weighted so heavily at 20% because, again, effective presentations, learning to present information effectively and in an engaging way is a really important skill in today's world. And so to receive full credit for this criteria, you need to use a variety of media creatively and appropriately, using the advice that's presented about maximizing the visual component of your presentation and minimizing the text component. and of course adapting your language to your audience, which is me as well as your peers. I expect that for many of you, this might be the first time that you're having to put together a video presentation, or especially a narrated video presentation. But rest assured, it's pretty easy to do that. But if you need technical help, it's there for you. So SVSU Information Technology Services is on the first floor of the Zanow Library. There's a link to them in the assignment document, and that's exactly what they're there for. So they can help you both to create a video, and if you're having issues uploading it to YouTube, or you've never done that before, or using Padlet, they can help you with all of that. I've also included some other resources in the assignment document, including some links to some screencast software or apps. In fact, one of them I use for my for video lectures like this one, ScreenRec. There are also a couple others linked there that students have had good luck with in the past. The next step is for you to write a draft of your script for your video project, and that can take a couple of different forms. You can either write it out as a narrative script, meaning everything that you plan to say, or if you prefer, you could create a detailed outline. But what's going to be important is for this to be detailed. Include details that could include quotes, specific information from your conversations. Here's an example of what not to do. When I say outline, I don't mean a real kind of sketch with no details. Like if you look at this example, you'll see that there are no details from the conversation. Just, here I'll give background, here I'll give products info, perspective info, practice info. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for details. So what is the actual content of your video? Also, I'm asking you to support what you learned from your partners with at least 3 credible sources. And the idea here is that, I know when some of you had, at least for some of your conversations, you noted, for example, that your partner didn't have a lot of experience with your topic or didn't have a lot to say about it, or was focused mostly on their own personal experience. And so you didn't really have a good idea about whether their experience was representative of what happened in their country generally. That's where the sources come in. So you're going to confirm or supplement what you learned from your partners with at least 3 credible sources. And you'll see in the note here that because the topics that you've chosen to explore are really kind of everyday topics, things related to daily life, your best sources are not necessarily going to be academic journals. I think that when a lot of students see that phrase credible sources, they immediately think that their professors are looking for a scholarly journal. And I'm really not here because I don't think that that's going to be relevant. Credible popular sources, and I have a lot of detail in the assignment document about what constitutes a credible source. But basically one where it's written by a reputable organization or even an individual author. The individual author doesn't have to be named. But popular sources could be things like mainstream media, news sites, sites like newspapers or magazines or just websites, as long as you can verify who is putting the information out there and that they themselves are citing their sources. I just showed you an example of what not to do for the outline. That is, and that was a really sketchy outline with no details whatsoever from your conversations or about your content. But I'm going to show you 2 examples of what you could do. So this first example, this student decided to write a narrative script, and you'll see that it's written as a script just as she planned to narrate it in her video. And you'll also see she included the format of her presentation and then the script. That's a great approach. If you prefer to do an outline, here's an example of a detailed outline that also includes information about the format of the presentation. And you'll see that this person has chosen to write out some bullet points, but they are including specific things that they learned from their partners in that outline. The other thing I want to point out here that I think that this outline does well is because this video is a synthesis and you're putting information together, I think that it works best that instead of just saying, I talked to this person and then and here's what they said, and then I talked to a second person and here's what they said about products, practices, perspectives, and a third person and here's what they said about products, practices, and perspectives in their country. You'll see that this student instead is, and this is just the very beginning of her outline, but you'll see that she's organizing by themes. And so for each theme, she's then citing information from her 3 conversations about how, and this student was looking at Native culture and indigenous cultures cross-culturally. And so one of her themes that she was exploring was the spiritual nature of those cultures. So I think that when you're talking about synthesizing information, the presenting by theme instead of presenting by conversation is a really good strategy. And to wrap up, this is the rubric that I'm using to grade your draft script. Again, that's due April 5th. And you'll see that it's pretty simple. There is the content, sources, and other requirements. Again, this video is really the broad strokes, but the details are found in the assignment document, or excuse me, the Canvas assignment for the draft script. And so please look at those and look at the rubric as you're drafting. But you'll see that you get points for completely addressing everything that is listed in the assignment instructions for content, that you use at least 3 credible sources to verify or supplement what you learn, that you describe the presentation format, and that you format your sources appropriately so that all the required information that lets me evaluate whether they're credible is included. If you have any questions as you start to draft your script or work on your video, please reach out, and I really look forward to reading what you have to say. Take care.